Vinland Saga. Okay, I first heard about Vinland Saga a couple months back when a lot of people were talking about it, as well as Demon Slayer, and instantly I heard it being thrown around with Berserk. Now, for those of you that have been around the channel for a while, know that I don't take that to be very light. I consider Berserk to be the greatest manga of all time, so whenever something is thrown around in that category, I have to check it out to see if it's even worthy to be in the same bracket. Now, this video is not to compare Vinland Saga to Berserk, but if not to point out some of the great things about Vinland Saga to where people, put it up in that same level, if you will. Now, personally, I do still have it below Berserk, Vagabond, and when it comes to Kingdom and Vinland Saga, I'm gonna be honest, I go back and forth, but I'm not fully caught up on Kingdom, so that still might change. But here's my overall thoughts when it comes to Vinland Saga, and whether, or if not, why the reasons you should or maybe shouldn't read it. Now, I'm gonna get this out of the way quick. Besides me thinking Vinland Saga is, again, phenomenal, I must say, and I know it's gonna sound a bit petty, and this isn't really a knock towards Vinland Saga, but I've just always really disliked the whole Viking aesthetic. I've never been a big fan of that kind of setting. I've been much more into, the whole samurais or stuff like that. And so just with the aesthetic alone and how it kind of starts, for me, it kind of got off on the wrong foot, but as you read it a little more, you start to like it a lot. And I think one of the characters, if not the character, that kind of helps that overall at the very beginning is Askeladd. Excuse me if I butchered his name, but yeah. Now, I have not seen the Vinland Saga anime. In fact, it's been months since I've checked out a new anime because, I don't know, mangas are just much more, I guess, time-saving, if you will. But Askeladd is just such a great character. He's one of those characters that is he's fully developed, he's well-written, and there's no need to develop his character in order for him to be good. He's just a good character from the start. And the more the time passes, even though he is kind of early on and throughout the rest of the story, the antagonist to Thorfinn, who's the main character, he doesn't really strike us as an entirely bad guy. He's a jerk, don't get me wrong, but he just has this charisma and this wisdom about him that honestly makes you forget about it at times. It's more as if he's the product of the world and the environment he lives in. Now, Vinland Saga also has a good cast of side characters. Early on, it's a little bit weak, but the more time passes, the more the side characters become relevant and better. One of the best ones I can just point out instantly is Thorkel. And look, I haven't seen the anime, so when reading the manga, am I the only one who imagines Thorkel sounding like the pigs from Shrek? Oh, yeah, Thorfinn! I don't know why, I just imagine this huge buff dude with that kind of voice. But Vinland Saga definitely comes at you with this more realistic approach than most animes you're probably accustomed to, which I personally do like, because instead of focusing on all of these huge giant explosion hype moments, it really has to focus on the narrative and the growth of the characters. And look, I'm not saying that being realistic automatically makes you good, but if not, I think the focus on narrative is much more important, and we see that throughout things such as Vinland Saga, Vagabond, and even Berserk, which is a dark fantasy. So if you are looking for a more, I guess, quote-unquote chill, realistic environment where narrative and character development is the main focus of the story, this is definitely something for you. And in terms of philosophy, it's not something like Vagabond, where the philosophy is all over the place, because again, when it comes to philosophy, I think Vagabond does it better than anybody else. But the beauty of Vinland Saga is the philosophies that are in the story aren't really flat out stated or put into words all the time like it is in Vagabond, but if not, it kind of takes you through the experience, through the character development and growth. And that's something only really the top mangas are able to do when it comes to their narrative and character development. Not only being able to state these philosophies, but if not through their characters, demonstrate how those philosophies are applied. Because that has always been one of my qualms when it comes to fan bases of other mangas that aren't necessarily that deep. It's like they try to make it deeper than it actually is, when the real deep mangas, they put it out there for you. So you're not really digging or stretching out for a narrative that isn't there. The narrative is there and it's presented to you, and we see the characters live and grow through it. And that's probably the key word that comes to my mind when it comes to Vinland Saga, and that is growth. And that's obviously, of course, best demonstrated through the main character Thorfinn. Now, Thorfinn as a main character struck me as a little odd at the beginning, mainly because I'd already seen this trend happen with Guts and Musashi from Vagabond, and that's they start off as very animalistic, brutal, dark, and then we see them slowly become more human as time goes on. And let's be honest, it's really hard to mess up that kind of narrative. I usually never see somebody mess up that kind of writing when it comes to a character who starts off evil and then slowly becomes more human, and sometimes vice versa, as we see with Gon and Hunter x Hunter versus Meruem. But when it did come to Thorfinn's character, at first it was like, okay, I've seen this before, but it's not being done any better or in a different way that attracts me, right? Or the way that it was being done, correction, didn't really capture my eye at first. And look, I will admit it was totally my fault for jumping the gun early on Vinland Saga. I was kind of like, all right, come on, show me something, but you know, when it comes to a story like that, when growth is the key word, you know, you have to wait and let it kind of do its thing over time. But Thorfinn's development throughout Vinland Saga is beautiful. It honestly is. Again, his relationship with Askeladd is just great, and of course, after reading his backstory and seeing his childhood, you definitely understand a character a lot more. And so I always think it's an extremely smart thing, as we see with Vinland Saga and other mangas, where either you start off with their childhood or you start off with them kind of a little bit during the present time, and then it flashes back to their childhood a few chapters in, some sooner than later. And so this is a short video because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. This is just me giving my thoughts and my praises to Vinland Saga, putting it out there on my channel that it definitely does belong in the same, I'd say, tier as Berserk, Vagabond, Kingdom. I believe it to be a must read, honestly. If you haven't read it yet and you've already read Vagabond, Berserk, and you haven't read Kingdom or Vinland Saga, definitely check out one of those two. Vinland Saga is a lot shorter than Kingdom, and so yeah. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell notifications. That way you're notified when a new video pops up on some of your favorite anime, manga, or whatever content. As always, this has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.